Many martial artists are teaching and coaching their students in a very open way. They are improvising, and often they don't really have a plan. For instance, as I know, Kron Gracie is teaching like that. And then are, of course, the other martial artists who are using a strict curriculum and they are having a plan. How do you feel about both approaches, and when do you use one approach or the other approach, or is there one approach better than the other? How do you feel about these two approaches?
So structured versus unstructured systems. I think there's a time and a place for both. Like most things in life, you know, goals and rule sets dictate behavior and vice versa. So I think I have my personal preferences, but it really depends what you're into. So or what your goals are. So specifically, what I mean by that is if I'm training one person, then I'm interested in getting to know them and rolling with them in as many possible scenarios. Um, in a scenario that will simulate what they'll be encountering very specifically. So that'll be very organic. It'll be very improvised. It'll be very um, situational. So in that respect, I can focus all my efforts on the person. I can mimic as many scenarios as I can. Now, if I'm teaching a class of 30 people, then my measure of success changes because now I'm no longer measured by adoption rate of one person, but adoption rate of 30 people. So there is a need to run some sort of a system. Conversely, say you're at the workplace, if you're working with only one person, you can develop rapport and jokes, etc., etc. But if you run 300 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, you just simply have to utilize time differently. You have to use different vehicles of communication, etc., etc. So I think if you're teaching classes, if you have multiple schools, I think systems become really, really important. And you can see that in DDS or some of the 10 planet systems because they're producing, or even Penn State, for example, with Gail Sanderson's team and his coaches, producing systems across, winners across multiple weight classes, across multiple rule sets, across multiple body types. So I think there's a time and room for both. So if your measure of success is defined by one fighter, then by all means improvise, and do you and do what works for you. And if you run multiple people, multiple schools, then your success is different. And there's a need for systemic thinking. Personally, I alternate between the two because as I focus more on coaching, I think systemic thinking is important because it allows me to make people better faster. But what I do enjoy personally is just, when I go and train with people that I train with closely, or head out to Utah and train with Mark Brewer. He knows my game, I know his. We roll, there's no word spoken, we train, we pick up intensity, we know each other's game over so many years, and so we just kind of get to it, improvise, and talk about it after and train the next day. So those are some of my favorite times. But seeing my students succeed and explore and grow their game, those are great too. So I sort of go between the two, and I think there's not really one versus the other, but they're more so, there's a season for everything. So as you transition from your competitive career into your coaching career, you enjoy the other one more. As you compete, you enjoy one more. So those are sort of my thoughts on those. So.